Hi. Okay, here we are in one of our other ministry centers here at this church and school, and we're at the main ministry center where we have a digital board. Okay, so the board I'm going to show you here is a digital board, which is slightly different than the analog board that I showed you at first. Okay, and so the concepts are all the same. Okay, you still have gains, you still have the parametric EQ, you still have the aux-ends, and you still have faders. Okay, a lot of times the digital boards have a lot more bells and whistles to it. Okay, and it does a few other things that the analog boards can't do on its own. But it doesn't mean that the analog boards are inferior to the digital boards, because you could do the same things with other equipment. Like if this board, this particular board, is the Roland M-480 board, and it has built-in effects like reverb or delay. Okay, well, doesn't mean yet you couldn't do that with the analog board. You just have to buy the effects equipment separately, and sometimes you'll see them on the side of a sound system in a rack or something like that, and you would use one of the aux-ends or whatever to send a signal to the effects equipment and then back out to the house speakers. So it's kind of the same thing. Okay, it's just that you know, in an analog board, it's just a lot bigger, and the digital boards just make it a little bit more you know, compact. Okay, so let me show you the board here, and I'll give you a tour of this board. Okay, like I said, this is the Roland M-480 board. Okay, and from first glance, it doesn't look very complicated from first glance, at least compared to an analog board. You don't see as many knobs. Okay, and so the deception is that, oh, this must be an easier board to work with. But the reality is it's actually a much more complicated board to work with, okay, than an analog board. Analog boards, just visually you could see what's there, and once you understand one channel from top to bottom, you understand the entire board because it's just repeated. Okay, it's kind of the same thing for this board, but just the layout's a little different. Okay, so quick overview layout on this. If I can bring in a little closer here. Okay, the same thing. We'll go from top to bottom. Okay, so here we have our gains. Here's your preamp gain. It's just that there's only one knob, and you have to select which channel you want, and that controls the same. This one knob controls the gain for all the channels. Okay. Then you have, you know, again, you got your plus 48 phantom power and your pad. Okay, here is your parametric EQ. Okay, so in this one you have your low mids, your high mids, and your high. Okay, the only difference between this one and the analog board, the Allen Heath I showed you, was this one you can adjust the frequency and the gain for all three ranges. Okay, so the other board you could not adjust the frequency for the high and the low, just the low mids and the high mids. Okay, this one you can adjust the peak on the low mids and the high mids, whereas the other board has preset peaks. Okay, so some of the boards have preset peaks, some of them has a button that, you know, switch between two preset peak settings. Okay, this one I have infinite amount of settings. Okay, then the auxiliary sends are right here. Okay, this board has 16 aux-ends opposed to the 6 that I showed you on Allen Heath. Okay, so there's a lot more aux-ends here. Okay, and here's the level for each one. So I select the aux-end I want, and I adjust the level. I want to adjust the level to aux-end 2. I select it and adjust it. Aux-end 3, adjust, select. Okay, so same thing. Okay, here's your pan. Okay, I can pan left, right, center. Okay, There's a couple other things on here that I'm not going to get to. Here's your high frequency pass. Okay, same as the other one, so I could turn it on and off. But this one, I can actually adjust the frequency. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice about these boards is I got a digital display right here. Okay, whereas the other board didn't have that. So that's the first thing. Okay, so here's my graph of my sound, which is kind of nice to see for us visual people. Okay, so this is with the high frequency pass off, on. See how it just cuts the sound at the end? And this one, I can adjust the frequency to anything I want, whereas the other board I could not. Okay, all right, moving on down. Again, here are your faders. Okay, so the faders, again, here's fader for channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. Okay, and those are your faders. Okay, this one has your select button. The select button on a digital board is so that since you only have one set of controls up here, okay, you need the select button to determine which channel you're controlling with these knobs up here. Okay, so if I want to adjust the high range EQing the highs on channel 1, then I select it. If I want to do it on channel let's say channel 5, then I have to select channel 5. Okay, and if you look at the display as I change channels, different things is happening up there. Okay, so different settings is changing. Okay, the solo button, okay, that solos out the channel. So that's kind of like that's sort of like the PFL button. Okay, so I could solo out this channel, and I can get just the signal for this channel, and then if I'm listening with some earphones or whatever, then I hear exactly what's just on this channel. Okay, and there's your mute button. Okay, oh, the other board had mute buttons too. Forgot to show that to you. Okay, so here's your mute button. Okay, the interesting thing about a digital board is you can group things different ways. Okay, this one you can link like two channels together like this, and it can move together. Okay, you can group any number of these channels together and assign one of the faders. Like we can assign fader channel 1 here to a series of groups right next to it. Okay, so that's kind of the beauty of a digital board. You got a little bit more control of programming. Okay, up here, here is just a couple other things that you may or may not have on other boards. This one has USB recording. We could record. This is our main control wheel. Okay, this will control, just different things. Like for example, I can so I can move selections around by going up and down on the wheel button here. Okay, I can even make adjustments with this. Like I could even make adjustment with the gain like that. Okay, by just rotating the wheel like such. Okay, then there's other things. The wheels for going through menus, that kind of thing. Okay, here's our group mutes, our DCA mutes. Now, DCA mutes is different than VCA mutes, and I'll talk about that when we talk about muting. Okay, this one I can actually adjust the patch. I got a soft patch bay. Okay, and we'll talk about the soft patch bay in a much later setting, later video. Okay, this one has scene memories. Okay, this is great if you're doing like a production, like a theatric production where you have scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. You have different people using the same microphones and they're just switching off mics. So instead of frankly adjusting things, okay, in between scenes, you can just select the next scene. Okay, so you look over the board, you see our scene selection. I use the wheel here to move up and down the scene. You can recall a scene and go to the next scene in the theater. Okay, this particular church and school uses the scene for different venues. Like you might have one morning service use scene 1 and a second morning service use scene 2 because there's different bands that play different instruments, and that way they don't have to reset up. Okay, that kind of thing. Okay, these are preset, they're not preset buttons, but these are programmable buttons, user buttons. Okay, there's your talk back. Okay, the other board had a talk back as well. This will allow us to talk back to any one of the anyone that we choose to talk back to through the monitors or whatnot. Okay, and then this is the solo monitor level. I can tune up and down the monitor levels overall on this. Okay, and that's really it. And then again, the kind of the cool thing about this board is that this is actually a 48 channel board. Okay, and you might look at this and you go, well, wait a minute, I can only count 24 channels on this board. Okay, well, on a digital board, how they save room is they put the channels in levels, okay, or layers. Okay, so 1 through 48. So if you look up here, you will see this is 1, and you go all the way over here and to 24. Okay, then back here again, it's 25 all the way through 48. Then you have your auxiliaries up here, okay, all the way to 16 here, okay. Then your matrix all the way the rest of the way, okay. And those are on different levels. And how do you get to them? Different boards will do it different ways, but usually there's a button along the side here like this, okay, or somewhere where you can select the layer. So this on this board, this button selects layer 1, okay, and button 2 selects layer 2. Okay, right now all my things are turned down in layer 2. Okay, so it's kind of neat. You know, you select one and the faders automatically move. Okay, and you can have your mix like that in fader 1, and here's your band and fade on level 1. I'm sorry, layer 1. Okay, in level 2, you can quickly switch to level 2, and then you might have you know, your speakers or your DVD player, your computer, that sort of thing. Okay, and you can have those mix. Okay, and then you could just switch back and forth between layers, and the faders automatically moves for you. Okay, and then the last level here is you got your auxiliary channels. So this are our main monitors. So we send the first 4 aux sends out to the monitors up on stage, those stage wedges. Okay, and then we have our effects here. So I can change the volume level of each effects, like reverb, delay, that sort of thing. Okay. Also, the really cool thing about the digital board is you will see here there's a layer button, and you see on the layer button it says user here. Okay, so I can actually go in here, and if I want a specific setup, like this board here has the way this church sets up is the first 4 is wireless. It's our wireless microphones that we give to the speakers. Then we start our band mix here, okay, all the way through to our drums. Okay, now let's say, well, I don't like this, and I want to, instead of having my wireless here, because I don't deal with the wireless when I got my band going, I might like to put my group faders here, or my DCA, or this board, the DCA group faders here. I might put my effects here instead of going to the third, going through the third layer here and having to run to the third layer to make the effects, to mute the effects, like when your lead vocal goes from singing to speaking, you don't want that reverb effect on, so you want to mute it, right? Okay, well, it's difficult in the middle of a mix to go from seeing layer 1 here to layer 3, mute the button. Okay, whereas if I had it programmed here, I could mute and unmute the button without having to change scenes. Okay, so that's the beauty of the user layer. So technically, we could have 1, 2, 3 preset layers, and then I can have on this board user layer 1, user layer 2, and user layer 3. So basically, you have up to 6 layers of programming on this board. Okay, 3 presets, and then 3 programmable by each user. And the beauty of that is I can program it for me, and then the next user that comes in might have a whole different mix that they like, and they could program it for them, and the two of us can operate the same board without bumping into each other. Okay. Oh, by the way, here's your main fader level. Okay. So that is basically the rundown on the Roland board. Okay. And then I can show you one more board. That's a smaller board, but it basically does the same thing. Okay, now this board here is made by the same company as the last one. Okay, it's made by Roland. Okay, it's just a smaller board. Okay, so it's the M300 board. Okay, and it's basically the same basic configuration. So I'm going to go through this really quick here. This one's only a 32 channel board on 2 different layers. Okay, the third layer is your auxiliary and matrix layer. Okay, so same thing. Okay, 1 through 16 on layer 1, and then 17 through 32 on layer 2. Okay. Things are basically in the same place, just kind of smaller. Here's your preamp gains and your phantom power, your pad. Okay, and then here is your equalizer. Notice it's a lot smaller because now I have to, in order to save space, I have to select which set of frequency I want to change to. Okay, so if I want to adjust the mid highs, I would have to select it, select frequency, okay, and then the gain. Okay, if I want the lows, then I have to select it. Whereas the last board, I didn't have to do that because they were all laid out. Okay, so this is just a little bit more compact. Here's your pan, left, right pan. Okay, both of these boards have built-in gates and compressions, and we'll get into that later because that's just a whole different effect that's very helpful in a board. Okay, here's your auxiliary channels. Okay, aux 1 through 8 on this one, and then your matrix over here. Okay, and here's your adjustment knob, and again, the buttons are the same here. You got the select button, you got the solo button, you got your mute, and your fader control. Okay, again, it's the same basic concept repeated over and over again. And every board you go to will have the same basic components. Okay, I can show you more boards, but basically it will be the same as what I've just showed you here. There's different digital boards out there. Your Yamaha's a good board, and the layout might be a little different, but again, it's going to have the same components to it. You're going to have your gains. You're going to have your equalizer. You're going to have your auxiliary. You're going to have your faders. Okay, and bottom line is, what makes whether you have more stuff or less stuff is the amount of money you want to spend and the company you want to go with. Okay, but this video series isn't a series about how to use the Roland boards or the Allen Heath board or the Soundcraft specific board. It is how to generally mix for your venue. Okay, and so hopefully at the end of this series we'll get through some pretty basic stuff all the way to some pretty advanced things like compression, gates, reverb, delay, that sort of thing. Okay, but the first couple of these will just be some basic understanding of how a sound system works, and you as a technician, what is your role in with the group. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed the first video series here, and hope you like the rest of the series. Let me know what you think.